All right, well, welcome everyone again. This is session 2 of our series on heaven, which again, we're doing Sunday forums. We did the first these past 2 Sundays, but this is an opportunity for me to just throw up some information that we covered this past Sunday, and then you all can come in and we can have a lively discussion, ask any questions you have, or whatever the case may be. Offer criticisms. I don't see any vegetables, so if you want to throw anything.
Just words.
It's pretty here. Is it going on that? Anyway. Go on to the top. Anyway. So let's see here. So for those of you who maybe don't know, we're using as our guidebook Peter Kreft's book of Heaven, The Heart's Deepest Longing. And it basically approaches this from a roughly Augustinian perspective of looking inside and looking at our hearts, what we really desire, what we really want, and then seeing where that leads in terms of what we were made for, what our ultimate hope, our ultimate goal is. Last 2 Sundays ago, the first week we talked about basically just raised this question of what is our desire and kind of examined it from a couple of different angles to see how it's a sort of strange desire that we have, and to try to notice it in a variety of different places. This past week, we talked about how this desire shows up in our space-time world. So we talked about time and eternity, and we talked about place in the sense of space and how that's related to eternity as well. So the things that we see in our world that are of a sort of sacramental value, sacramental character, in the sense that they're like signs. They not only exist for their own purpose, but they point beyond themselves to something deeper, to something else. And he focused on. We'll talk about a few of those that he highlighted, but they were really just illustrations of a principle that he thinks is true across the board in all of our experience. All of reality is, he would say, sacramental in a sense. We might as well just jump right in. This first one is from C.S. Lewis, from his The Weight of Glory. And he writes, he's talking about all of these, in this particular case, he's talking about when we think about our experiences when we think about our experiences of remembering past experiences that we enjoyed, or remembering beauty, or being an aesthetic pleasure, but really anything that gives us that sense of rapture or delight, or what Lewis in his writings called joy. These things are good images of what we really desire. But if they are mistaken for the thing itself, they turn into dumb idols, breaking the hearts of their worshippers. For they are not the thing itself. They are only the scent of a flower we have not found, the echo of a tune we have not heard, news from a country we have never yet visited. Yeah.
Well, I just was trying to, this is a negative of an issue, of an idea that I didn't hear discussed last week.
Okay.
And that was the question of whether our sense of heaven is based on memory. That is, our memory of our pre-existence.
Yes.
I'm not trying to sell it,
right.
But it's an idea that God sent us here,
right,
from a heaven that we knew.
Yeah.
So basically erased our memory, but not entirely.
Yeah.
So that we have a sense.
Right.
This is the negative. Lewis says
right.
We have not yet visited.
Right.
But I've heard at least enough people who I respect, who offer this possibility. We had a pastor friend who wrote a book called The Longing for Home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as though we remember where we grew up.
Right.
And
right.
I just put it out to get you to react to it and to have it among the things but we
No,
at
I'm
least
glad
think
you
about.
did, and as I said, for those who are in the Sunday forum, you know, the book is way better than anything I'm doing, so I'm trying to condense a whole bunch of material. I'm not doing a very good
Sure.
job, but one of the things that he does talk about is in a slightly different way, I think. But that's basically a Platonic idea. He's recalling this Platonic tradition, and there certainly is a strong tradition of Christian Platonists who, and we'll talk about that maybe in a second. But his line is basically he thinks of he thinks about myth, and he thinks about the stories we tell about that golden age and the distant past and all of that. And he, I don't think he's saying a previous existence, but there's somehow in our consciousness an awareness of Eden, an awareness of that presence with God before the fall is essentially what he's getting at. And he doesn't, as far as I could say, he doesn't really flesh it out in any kind of detail, but just throws it out as a suggestion that maybe that could help to explain not just the Christian myths and things that have come up, but like universally, there's a sort of human longing for this, whatever it was that we miss, that we can't put into words. So that's I think one way of dealing with it. The other is a little bit more extreme, and it really is more along the lines of what you were saying, which is, if you recall from your college philosophy class, ancient Greek philosophy, Plato says basically learning really is recalling things, it's recollection, right? And so you never have actually learned anything in your life. You just remembered things that you already knew. And he uses some interesting examples. He takes a little kid and he teaches him a math problem, but the kid answers all the questions because he already knows the answer. So he answers everything correctly. But for Plato, that was actually the at least one understanding of his sort of cosmic picture. We existed before our present existence, where we perceived the true, the good, the beautiful, the forms of things, geometric truths, all sorts of things. And then we are kind of imprisoned in this present earthly existence. And that part of that imprisonment is sort of losing our full sight of those truths. But we still remember enough that our memory can be jogged. And so anyway, so that's the basic, Greek philosophical view.
Yeah, but for me, it's not so philosophical as experiential, because on several occasions in my life, I've been to places that I've never been to before, and I've been absolutely convinced that I've been there. I have come back.
Right.
And in one instance, it was extremely moving. I mean, I wept. And then studying history, I found out that part of my family had been in that place at,
right.
And so that's meaningful. The other thing that's meaningful when it talks about news from a country we've never yet visited, coming from the United States, you wouldn't experience this, but coming from Canada, it's really something. You leave the country and it disappears. You don't hear much about it on the news.
Okay.
It's the same when we lived in New Zealand. I mean, there's lots of stuff in the news about New Zealand, but you leave New Zealand and forget it. And so when you get news from a country that you have visited, that you haven't seen for a long time, it's really meaningful.
Right.
Right.
So. Yeah, thank you. Those are really helpful. And
I think you leave Naples and you don't get wink.
So, and I think that the first one I think is along the lines of what Kreft is talking about, I think. And he does throw out the idea of a sort of Jungian collective unconscious or something along those lines.
No, it's consciousness.
I know, but he's trying to kind of make sense of that. Like, you've never been there, but your family has, and so.
Well, all right, reincarnation.
Yeah.
I don't know that as a very young person, somebody made a comment to me about this. I mean, and it really kind of scared me.
Yeah.
And I have not thought about it honestly until you just
Right.
started talking. We had been, you and I were married two lives ago or something. I'm thinking, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is not.
Married that guy.
It's not in my wheelhouse.
When did the church rule that out? Because I understood that in earlier days, reincarnation was just, among numbers of other things that were talked about and perfectly reasonable. But nowadays, that's not part of
Right.
Christian teaching, although I find it quite attractive as an idea.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
You've lived a life. Depends on who you were married to, or life.
No, 2 lives ago.
Oh, 2 lives
2
ago.
lives
John,
ago.
did you have some?
I'm sorry, now that
Oh.
you brought this up, I've been terrified reading about the Gnostic Gospels and the 7 veins of hell run by the archons and the memory wipe in between lifetimes. So I'm glad you brought reincarnation up. I've been terrorized online with this Saturn moon matrix and the archons of the Gnostic Gospels. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wait, there are some crazy things out there,
Is
but
that real?
that's not primarily what we're gonna come to talk about. I appreciate it. Going in one direction. So, but I hope that this, whatever it is, whether it's a sense of recovering a lost Eden, or if you have if you think there's some sort of sense in which there's a previous existence or whatever it might be, that you can resonate with something along the lines of what Lewis is saying or what Kraft is trying to get at. I happen to love Lewis's language because I really do think it, like the echo of the tune we've not heard. There's a sort of recognition in that,
Yes.
and yet we haven't heard it before. So it really does capture that sense of something that we claim to have not experienced, and yet somehow it's just built into our.
But that's why George Harrison was taken to court for My Sweet Lord.
George Harrison was what?
Taken to court for My Sweet Lord because somebody said I wrote the.
Okay.
You wrote that.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Sorry.
and it's happened to others too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
what I'm talking about.
and
They
so
wipe
much
out
music
brains.
is
Of course you remember it faintly.
reworked into other music.
Yes.
Right.
But Catherine could be the music expert. But so much that they've heard the tune
Yeah.
will go, oh, okay.
You haven't
deliberately chosen it. It's gone through
Deliberately,
the back of your
it
mind.
may not be the whole thing, the whole piece,
Right.
but it's just a,
Well, but haven't
Three
you
bars.
noticed in
A
the
few
more
bars.
recent hymn books? The more recent hymnals. You'll listen to the organist play the music and you'll think, those aren't the words I grew up with.
Mhm.
I mean, basically, they have taken the music and made the words more current.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
often does happen,
And
right?
I-
Yeah.
Very annoying too.
What?
Very annoying sometimes.
Annoying.
Are you bad?
You know,
at thinking
I-
of this just
I
because
think
you
one
want
way.
to?
Yes, I do.
one way
Yes,
of
I have
looking
been
at
known
this
to.
Is looking first inwardly at yourself and asking yourself, how satisfied are you with who you are and where you are today? We see so much commercial and political exploitation of nostalgia, and that appeals to people who are unhappy with where they are right now.
Yep.
Okay,
the good old days.
that is not my mentality. My mentality has always been, and it's what I was raised with, is that tomorrow will be better.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
And,
You and Annie.
and as a
These are the good old days.
as a consequence of that, the old days just don't have the kind of nostalgic blessing for me that they have for many other people. And I think a lot of people fall into one side of that ledger or the other. If things look bad today to them, to the way they used to be, they're going to feel a lot more nostalgic about the past and less optimistic about the future than those of us who are hoping that maybe we can continue to be effective, to change and make things better for others in the future.
Yeah, and I think I think that appeal that's often used and abused to get people to do something that you want them to do or to think something you want them to think is playing on this desire that Kraft and Lewis and others are trying to articulate. But I think they would want to say there's a distinction, but they're drawing on that desire that we have. Because what they would say is, Lewis in particular is very clear about this. He said, I tried to find out what it is what I was trying to go back to, but it was nothing in my experience. He wasn't thinking of his childhood. He wasn't thinking of, his hometown or whatever. And they'll say, even in the best of situations, even when everything is going right, you still have that sense. If we're thinking about the right thing, it's not only like something that you remember kind of having at some point, like you would just remember a wonderful childhood, let's say. But it's also something in the experiences of joy and rapt aesthetic delight, that there's still a kind of longing in there, but it's hard to put into words what that longing is for, what it's about. And again, I just threw this up here, the letter to the Hebrews, as one of several different places in the New Testament where this idea of being a kind of strangers or aliens in this life is articulated. This is, letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11 begins, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And then it starts to talk about, the fathers of the faith, Abraham and Sarah, etc. These all died in faith, not having received what was promised, but having seen it and greeted it from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. So that's just one articulation. Yeah, that's just one articulation of, in the scriptures, of that sense of being, or, as Jesus says in John 17, being in the world but not of the world. There's some aspect of our being that feels just out of line with our current existence. Yes, Jennifer.
I agree with some of what you're saying, but not in totality. For instance, Mozart is certainly better than just the music we hear today. And if you talk about time and bring up physics, what happened in the past is going to happen in the future, blah, blah, blah. You have to define time. Mm-hmm. If it's happened in the past, it's going to happen in the future. Then you talk about the singularity and mind control and high technology, post-humanism. There's a lot more going on here. And you have to bring up physics and time concepts if you're going to talk about the past and the present.
Which all way beyond my skill level. my science education ended in high school. But really, this is a more philosophical and theological reflection rather than scientific.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I just got confused.
We also have all the people who were living in the time and expecting the Messiah to come. Right. In their lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very real. And Paul writes about this regularly. Mm-hmm. And people are going to die and who haven't experienced that rapture or whatever that they thought they were going to get. And some of that, I think, where people have expectations of some golden future, but they didn't get there.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
maybe that's heaven.
Well, that's true, and they may get it in heaven, but that wasn't the way. That wasn't their philosophy. Then they were kind of.
Well, but they're probably looking for Jesus in a way that he was 2,000 some years ago, and if he reappears today, who knows what it's going to look like? I mean,
and back there they were really expecting a second coming in their lifetime. They truly believed that. And so this was a,
Disappointed.
Or another
belief
way to,
that-
another way to put it is, they were expecting him to come any day,
Yes.
and that's true.
and he keeps warning them, you
All the
you
time.
gotta, you gotta, because
Right.
you gotta eat.
Right, right.
You
And yeah, what
can't-
happens initially, right, is when you're expecting him any day and people start dying, you're like, well, any day could be any day, but it could be a long any day, right? And so that's the beginning of the writing of the New Testament and things like that,
Mhm.
that in the more sort of structured order of the church and all sorts of things get added when they
they realize
sort of
it's-
growing awareness is that the any day is probably going to be a little bit longer than we anticipated initially.
And
But
we have to pass on our knowledge, we have to
Yeah.
pass on our beliefs and what we.
Yeah.
Which is why you write it down
oh yeah,
at
yeah.
a certain point.
But there are some sections like this passage in Hebrews or when Paul talks in Philippians, where he's talking about something that seems to give a different character of the sort of expectation of the second coming. He's talking about our sort of the fit of our lives in this world. There's something about this. Here he's talking about if they were seeking the homeland that they were taken from, they could have just gone back to it, right? But that's not what they really wanted. They wanted something more than that. They were promised a land, but they were back in the land. They wanted something deeper than that. So that's what he's getting at. David, I see your hand or no?
No,
Okay.
you keep going.
Yes, John.
Historians, or at least biblical historians, are telling us that really one of the pervasive discussion concepts during the time of Jesus, the first century in Palestine, was the notion of the kingdom of God. And the Jews for hundreds of years had expected the restoration of the kingdom of God. And the big debate at that time was whether or not the kingdom of God was just going to happen to us, or somehow, or because we had set things up in a way that it would just was like the rapture in all of the modern novels, where it just sort of happens one day, okay, or whether we had to work for it.
Or do something to usher it in.
We had to do something to change the way the world was
Right.
before the kingdom of God would arrive. Okay. And that debate went on it still goes on as to whether and one of the concerns I have with so much of this thinking about the coming is that it paralyzes good Christians from acting on the Gospels and doing something today to make the Gospels real.
Which is ironic because when you hear Paul talking about it, for instance, it's always in a context where he says, therefore, go do something.
Go do something.
Right?
Yeah.
Just do it.
He's always
That's why
exhorting
Paul
them.
is my patron.
Yeah, he's always exhorting them. He's saying, because the time is short, because you never know when you're going to have to give an account, because, all of those things, because of that, now is the time. Today is the day when you have to go out and do it. So, yeah, those things should not be in tension with one another.
Yeah, it seems to me there's a struggle today, and I suppose it's been true forever, between those people who say that you can imagine heaven and you can have all these, we'll have freedom of religion and so on. But reality is here and now. I agree with John completely that we're called by the Christian faith and a lot of other faiths to make the current, the place where we are, more by kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. But the question is, what is central? And the question becomes for those people, why would intelligent people get together on a Thursday night and talk about heaven and talk as though heaven is the real world and earth is a lesser place, whether it's a
Stopping off.
kindergarten, whether it's a prep school, whether it's a prison. I mean, I'm not trying to sell any of those. I'm just saying that but the issue is what is reality? And what is less? And that's the question that I think ultimately we're trying to answer. And I think that not to push the we were once in heaven, the memory idea. The memory idea gives you a basis, at least logically, for saying somehow, somewhere, we know. We're not just making this stuff up. We know that there is a place that is better, a place that we should make the earth more like, but to which we can have hope, expectation. It gets to questions of abortion, it gets to questions of capital punishment, right to die, all these issues. Are those issues that God, that those are left to God and we don't have authority to decide those? They're very practical questions. And I think though, if you focus on it that way, which is the real world? And why do we think it's the real world? It brings you a little closer to the to what are really practical arguments, and which are just kind of nutty.
Yeah, and I will say that both our talks and the book will eventually get to that point, right? I think you have one more week between now and then, but I think in the last session, he's gonna talk about what differences heaven make to Monday morning, that kind of thing. And you know, the running joke, you know, I'd rather be focused on, you know, what, you know, heaven makes no earthly difference, that kind of thing, you know, I'd rather be focused on doing some good rather than but there are so many things you could say in response to that. And I think one of the best and easiest things is just to point to the example of so many Christians throughout the centuries who have shared that vision, who would easily say, the true thing is what's coming next. And yet they've been the most, you know, active in terms of their, you know, this current existence for precisely the reason that it's Paul says, right? You know, every moment counts, right? Every moment counts. So, I think we will ultimately get there, and we're not going to do this in the sessions, but if you do have the book, or if you end up getting the book and you want to read along, there's an appendix at the end of the book this is Peter Kraft, the philosopher, describing or sort of giving a presentation of C.S. Lewis's argument from desire. And this is an argument, a very strong argument, I think, for heaven and for God's existence, on the basis of kind of what this book is all about. And he presents it pretty well, I think. So if you're interested, if that intrigues you at all, and if you're looking for something, this is just something we talk about, a speculative thing, or is this, can we get some you know, some actual substance to it, the argument? I think that's a great place to start, David.
I'm struggling with the book. I've got to page 100, so.
Well, you're doing
and
well.
I just wanted to read one section. We haven't, not saying whether I agree with it, don't agree with it. We have a homing instinct, a homing detector, and it doesn't ring for Earth. That's why nearly every society in history, except our own, instinctively believes in life after death. Well, I would challenge that. I don't think that's it. Like the great mythic wanderers, like Ulysses and Aeneas, we've been trying to get home. Earth just doesn't smell like home. However good a road it is, however good a motel it is, however good a training camp it is not home. Heaven is.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. And it's really tough because what he's trying to articulate is something that we can't, you know, like if it was just something that you could put into lucid prose, people would do it, right? And this is the challenge of theology. You're trying to describe a being who surpasses, who transcends our understanding, our categories. how do you describe a being that you literally cannot use human language to describe accurate, completely. So there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing that. And what I like about his treatment, at least, is, I mean, there's a lot worse treatments, trust me. But what I like about his treatment is that it's very suggestive, and he's trying. If he comes up with an illustration or an example or something you're not getting, just drop it and go on to the next one, because he's just going one after another, and he's trying to kind of get you to, if this doesn't work, try this. How about this? How about this? He's trying to get you to not so much grasp with 100% clarity the picture that he's painting. He's trying to get you to identify something that he believes is in all of us. It's a desire, it's a longing, it's something, however you want to describe it. And once you kind of put your finger on it, then he's done his job, so to speak.
But I don't want to die. And so I'm sorry, but I don't mean to cut it off, but
right.
I don't long for anything other than here.
Right.
This is home.
Yes.
And even though I might have senses of being in other places at other times,
right.
This is home.
Yeah.
And so listening to the eternal longing, well, I'm going to have to check in my pocket for something, because I'm not aware of that.
You know what I'll put in with David's quote, which is a lovely passage. There's this scene. This also shows up in the last battle. I was going to do one quote from the last battle, so I'll do another one. I don't know that don't have it memorized, but it's this. He's describing. So if you remember the book, this is the last in the Narnia series.
Yeah.
The kid, there's this big battle, and then there's this door. Sorry, that's my little warning. There's this doorway in the middle of the field, of battle, and no one, and it's sort of open door, and people get thrown through it, and then they are no longer there, and so there's it's like a barn kind
A
of
portal.
Yeah, like a portal, exactly. And so they people, no one wants to go in, and people say whatever, the battle's raging. Anyway, everyone eventually goes through this door. And when they get through the door, they walk. The battle's over and it's peaceful, and they end up meeting the Christ figure of the novel, Aslan, and the children who are through there, and some of the talking beasts are walking around, and they're experiencing that they don't know where they are, but it's very familiar. They know something about this country, but they can't put their finger or their hook or whatever on what it is about it. And then I think it's the far side, the eagle starts flying up, and he gets this view of the whole thing. And the kids are like, it reminds me of that place in Narnia, it reminds me of this, it reminds me of that. And the eagle comes up and he goes, we've been blind. This is Narnia. This is our home country. This is where we are. But this is the real Narnia. Like, this is our homeland. Yeah. The other one was the imitation. So that sense of home and when you find those places here, yes, it's not like going to something completely alien. It's going to here more in a more full sense, in a more real sense, and all of a sudden you say, that's exactly what I was longing for. So that's another kind of image to put alongside that same one. This coming week, he'll get into sort of dispelling some misconceptions that had sort of grown up about going off and leaving. We talked about it a little bit this week, but leaving everything physical and space and time behind. Whereas the biblical image is quite the reverse. It's being further clothed. It's not outside of space and time. It's a resurrection of the body. It's not immortality of the soul in the Greek Platonic sense. So there's a lot of different ways that the tradition is emphasizing the continuity, but it's a continuity that is transformed in ways that are very hard to articulate. So, Paul says it's like the difference between a seed and a full-grown plant. Well, that's a pretty big difference, right?
But Ross raises a very good point.
Yes.
We're assuming right now that we are not talking about someone in pain with a terminal illness who really would want to go.
Right.
But for many of us, we have really wonderful lives, and you don't really face or want the question of what comes next. when there isn't an alternative. And at that point, we don't have the option of staying here. So at that point, we're hungry for the quotation that says, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor has it entered your heart, the things that are waiting for us. And then we really want it. And we're willing to think a little bit about it. And then, for the first time, the C.S. Lewis quote makes a little sense. I don't like the whole concept of it. Oh, it's so beautiful because it's what you've never seen or heard. Well, I'm sorry, but the way our brains work is they work based on what we've seen.
They're associative.
Well, the thing that I think about, Catherine, is I believe there's heaven. So I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to experience it. I don't long for it because I'll be there. I know that'll happen.
And if Kreft is right, there's going to be a recognition that you're right, that you didn't in one sense long for it. You were content where you are.
Yeah.
But in another sense, your contentment rested on what you get there. It rested on that kind of deep-seated. Actually, next week we get this lovely image that he gives in the book. It's very simple, but it's just a lovely image, and it's basically an image of our psychosoma, our humanity, and it gets, as it gets deeper, our desires and things get closer together. They get sort of pulled in together, and ultimately, what we separate in this life, what we see as distinct things, pleasure and exactly come together, and we see that what we got in a glimpse over there, and a glimpse over there, and a glimpse over there is really all ultimately, and in its fullest sense, is really all the reality undergirding all reality, which is God. So you'll see all of those things, but how do you describe that? You see it in a way that we can't even articulate now because we don't experience things that way. So the best we can do is sort of paint a picture like that, or give a suggestion of what would it be like if something like this were to happen. So, well, I hate to say this, but we are just about out of time. There are a lot of...
We're out of heaven.
Yeah.
You're getting kicked out.
Yeah.
Some angels.
I hope you guys have enjoyed these. This has been fun for me. It's fun to hear your thinking on this. Yeah.
I promise you, call on me.
What's that?
Okay, this brings up simulation theory, the pineal gland. You use the word added. They say Jesus said the kingdom of God is within. He didn't get down and worship. That was added by religion. So you do need to bring up science. You can't have a discussion about physics and timelines and everything happening at once. You can't have this discussion without that. Or it's not going to be good.
Well, that's the best I can do. I'm sorry.
Something is a mystery and is best left there as, in my humble opinion.
Well, then you're going to lose all the young people. They're not going to want to come to church anymore. They're going to be sitting down playing video games.
I don't have to worry about that.
Well, we should.
He does have an interesting discussion about, he is a philosopher, and in the modern period, you have the philosophers who try to figure out what's the relationship between mind and body and all sorts of things. Some of those were on the forefront of science. And so Descartes very famously was trying to figure out where the mind connects with the body, and is it in the pineal gland or is it wherever? All sorts of interesting things. But his treatment, he's much better at doing it, so I'll just let you read it if you're interested, is basically to sort of flip that on its head, rather than try to figure out the place where the sort of heavenly things meet earth. He says it's the opposite way around. Earth is contained in heaven. And so it's just a reorientation of the whole kind of way of thinking about things. Very interesting. Let me close with prayer. I'll let you all go, and then next week wait a second. Yes, I think next week we'll meet again, and then I think there's a week off where
Right.
The speaker.
Thursday night.
yes, we have one more week, I think, and then the speaker will be here, and then so we'll take a break and we'll finish the series the week after that. All right. Gracious Father, we give you thanks for this beautiful night, and we thank you for the opportunity to come together. We thank you for the beautiful music and food that satisfies our bellies, and conversation that satisfies our minds and hearts. Pray that you would draw us closer to you, that with each day, with each experience, that we might know that true joy, which is our heart's deepest longing. These things we ask in Jesus' name.
Amen.
It's so deep, I didn't know it was there.
Thank you.